Good afternoon, everyone. Let's just get a quick round of questions out of the way. So, how many of you here are app developers? Okay, quite a few. How many of you guys are already running ads? Okay, again, quite a few. And how many of you are planning to start running ads? Okay, and how many of you are sleepy after the food? Okay, quite a few. Okay, so I'll try to keep this short. I'm just going to focus more on the content itself, like no fluff, and just try to give you the most out of this. And if you hear my voice going like flat throughout the course of the talk, that's just the cost of being at networking events, I guess. But yeah, a quick introduction about me. I started, in fact, yesterday was me finishing 8 years in the Shopify ecosystem. I joined Pushal back in 2017 as the founding member, and after the company got acquired in 2021, I left a year later to then start consulting with a whole bunch of apps. So I've worked with about 102 apps in the Shopify space as of like last month, and I've run ads for about 70 of them. So I feel like I have some knowledge that I can definitely share with you, and you can walk away with some of it. In the interest of keeping this very tactical, I'm gonna have some baseline for this talk. So ideally, you should already be running search ads because that is the one that you can actually optimize. The homepage ads and the category ads don't have a ton of room for optimization, with the exception of just adjusting your bids. You do understand the core concept of Shopify ads, so things like CPI, visibility, impressions, clicks, conversion rate, things like that. And you know your app's key metrics. So that would be, at the very least, that would be your LTV and your conversion rates. But where you feel stuck is kind of with optimization and scaling, not knowing where you really want to go next. But if you're not in this category yet, if you're yet to start running ads or you're just about on the way to getting to the point of being stuck, I am going to have something at the end for you as well. But before that, before we get into the tactics itself, I thought let's just start with a quick appetizer. This is not something I guess a lot of people might be aware of, but if you're running ads, doesn't have to be optimized. You can kind of reverse engineer what the search volume for any given search term is. All you have to do is take the impressions and divide that by your visibility percentage, both of which are metrics you get in your Shopify uh, ad dashboard. So quick example, right? Like if I have like 1% visibility and I'm getting one impression, that means like with 100% visibility, I'll just be getting 100% impressions. So why does this matter? That's because you can actually start using this information even in your app store listing. There are going to be a bunch of keywords that you probably are not even aware are high volume keywords. Or even like your medium to long tail keywords, which you don't know like what you need to rank for. So just doing this very basic exercise with your search terms is going to give you a lot of valuable information, not just about the terms that you should be ranking for, but if you start looking at the terms which are describing features, you'll actually even get feature ideas for what you potentially could be building next, of what actually is getting searched a lot. So moving on to the tactics itself, I'm just going to cover three of them. Starting with geo-targeting. So what this is, you can select which countries or regions you want to focus your ad campaigns on. Shopify has this available for every app developer, regardless of whether you have built for Shopify or not. All you have to do is select the geo-targeting option for targeting specific countries and just select the list of countries you want to target. So ideally, you should already be doing this if you have an app which is only popular in certain regions or is already geo-locked for certain categories. Like for example, you might have like a parcel app which only works for certain countries in Europe. That seems to be quite popular. Or you might have like a WhatsApp app that typically works better in like Asia and Latin American countries as compared to anything else. So that's where ideally you would want to be doing this. So let's look at how you can use Mantle actually to get all of this information. In Mantle, you have the customers page, which has the insights report on it. All you have to do is just select the country pivot over here. And it's going to give you the breakdown of every single country from which you have users, how many customers you have in those countries, and what your average customer lifetime value or LTV is in those countries. Taking that, you want to just export it, which you can see in the top right, and that you're going to get a CSV. From there, all you have to do next is figure out which countries, figure out the countries which you want to split into a few buckets. So there are a few options here, depending on who you're targeting and what kind of budget you're playing with, what your LTV metrics are that you might want to consider. The most popular one tends to be try splitting your countries into high, low, and ignore buckets. Ignore buckets, easiest, typically are going to be the ones which have the lowest LTV out of all. The high and low ones is that's something you're going to have to figure out a cutoff for by yourself, where you can just group countries based on like the in descending order of like the LTV, and from there just set a specific breakpoint and split them into these two buckets. The idea behind this is that instead of just having one campaign, which is going to be working on targeting every single country, you're going to make it way more tactical by having different CPI targets for different LTV buckets, right? Because if I have, let's say, the high LTV bucket, which is paying me $1,000 over the course of their lifetime, I could easily be spending way more on acquiring that kind of a customer as compared to someone, let's say, in the low LTV bucket who's paying me, let's say, $400 a month, right? So that's kind of the idea behind this. Another one that you could consider, especially if your LTV metrics are really high and they're really spread over, is splitting them into three instead, which is just high, medium, and low. Again, this is really something which is super subjective. There's no right or wrong answer. This is something you are going to have to figure out for yourself. But I guess like even ChatGPT could help you out with like a bit of basic analysis on this. And finally, if you are someone who's running on a very tight budget or you have a very low LTV, you ideally want to focus only on your high LTV countries. This way, you are going to get the most out of your budget. Yeah, you're not really going to get the most number of installs that you otherwise could have, but one thing you can be sure of with this is you will at least be running profitable ads in a very, very sustainable manner, right? Next up, we have plan targeting. It's very similar to the concept of country targeting, with the only exception being this is something which only built for Shopify apps have access to. So if you are somebody who has built for Shopify, as you can see here, there is an option for you to just select which plans you want to target. The downside of this is that it's only going to work for logged in users. So hypothetically, you could have somebody who's on the Shopify Plus plan, but they aren't logged in and they're not going to see your ad purely because they're not logged in. The upside is that you can be 100% sure that your ad is going to be shown exactly who you want it to be shown to, right? Similarly, again, in Mantle, you can go to the customer insights report, click on the Shopify plan pivot, and it's going to give you the breakdown of the customer counts and the LTV across these different buckets. Now, because as you can see here, there's only a few plans that you can really target over here. The ones that, again, you ideally want to focus on are basic, grow, advanced, and plus. So these are a few options of how you could go about doing it. If you see that there's a wide difference in the LTVs for Shopify Plus versus advanced versus the grow and basic plans combined, you could look at potentially something like this, or you could be looking at just targeting only Shopify Plus and ignore everyone else, especially if you're running something which is only going to be valuable for enterprise users, or you are running with a limited budget and you know that you're okay to get fewer installs but pay more, provided that they give you a lot of value out of it. That's another option. Or something which I generally see tends to be a very common setup, at least for my clients, is just group plus and advanced together and grow and basic together, because with the numbers put together, it just kind of makes sense that the LTVs tend to be pretty similar for these two different buckets. Finally, this might seem the most complex, but it's actually one of the easiest things to set up. If you have an ad campaign which you feel is already kind of optimized, but just trying to figure out how to just get more juice out of it, you could do something like this, what I like to call a waterfall campaign. Essentially, your campaign one is the primary campaign, the one that you have already set up. Campaign number two is essentially just a duplicate of the first campaign, But what you're doing is you're just setting all of the bids for all of the keywords to somewhere around 30 to 40% of the original bid, which means of the bids in the first campaign. And similarly, again, a third campaign, which is a duplicate of the first, where all the bids are set to 5 to 10% of the original bid. The idea here is that the first campaign is going to drive the bulk of your installs, with the second campaign typically having like fewer impressions, but still being able to drive a decent number of installs at much lower cost per click and like a cost per install. And the third campaign, again, depending on which niche you're in, and how competitive it is, it won't get the most number of installs, but you can be sure that the installs are just going to come at a fraction of the cost that you'll get with the first campaign, right? So essentially, like I said, this is what it is, right? It's just a duplicated campaign with um, like lower bids, and each step is a fallback for the campaign which is before. And the reason why it works is as you exhaust your daily budget for the primary campaign and your competitors who are bidding just slightly less than you start exhausting theirs, that's when your next step kicks in. And similarly, as the day goes on and more apps continue exhausting their budget, then your third step can kick in. And this is just a quick idea of like how you can just do it really quickly. After you duplicate your campaign, just select all the keywords, click on change bid, and there's a mass option to like just decrease bids with percentage and just set by what percentage you want to decrease them. And that's it. Like in pretty much like 2 to 5 minutes, you could be done with this task. So as I said, like what you can expect here, you typically will be maximizing your reach earlier in the day. That's because your primary campaign is typically the one which has the highest bid, and also is going to have the biggest chunk of your budget. So you will get the most number of installs and impressions from this one, and you start to capture more cheaper traffic through the rest of the day. There's no need to spend aggressively just by bidding at that same high CPC of your first campaign. So, for example, if you're, let's say, having a budget of $3,000 on your primary campaign, what you could do is maybe just make that closer to 2,500, spend maybe 300 on your second campaign, and maybe 100 to 200 on your third campaign. So the idea being that you're trying to maximize the overall reach as well as get more bang for your buck. So a natural question after covering these three tactics is going to be, what tactic should you use out of these? So the honest answer is it depends, right? Like, what's your ideal customer profile? Are you only working in like specific countries? Are there specific countries which tend to be very popular for the app and the functionality that you provide? Is it something which typically is only suitable for higher end customers, like maybe something related to inventory planning and forecasting? Then it also depends on your app and ad metrics. So app metrics, obviously, like your LTV and your conversion rates, and your ad metrics, like what niche you're in and what the typical CPC and bids tend to be like. A lot of you here might know, like the marketing niche probably has keywords which have the suggested bid as $75 or higher. So if you're in something like that, then really there's um, um, you might not have like a lot of leeway in terms of just having too much budget to spend all the time, right? Which brings me to the final point, which is budget. If you have a lot of budget, you technically could just be doing like a little bit of everything. But if you don't, again, you kind of want to figure out what makes the most sense for you, right? You could probably combine geo-targeting together with plan targeting to, let's say, only target Shopify Plus merchants in your high LTV countries, and that should help you get really profitable installs out of it, right? And finally, as I said, there is something at the end of it for everyone. So there's something that I've been working on, which is like a complete ad optimization guide, which goes through like all the concepts of what do you need to know about Shopify ads, how do you find out what your CPI target should be, how do you find your LTV numbers, how do you find what keywords you should target, and then obviously getting into like the campaign setup itself, how to optimize, and the tactics that we have gone through, along with a few questions. It's available, if you can just scan that, it's available for free. I'm not going to be charging anything for it. But yeah, that's basically it. So I guess we can take questions here.